Okay, so something went wrong, and the share didn't get recorded last week, but I'm pretty sure we're at the two dots, almost halfway down on Mem Zayin Amud Beis, 47b2 at the very top. So the Mishnah said, a father and more importantly, a husband are obligated to provide food for the father for his daughter and the husband for his wife. Actually, it doesn't say that the father is obligated to feed his daughter in the Mishnah. Well, I think we'll talk about it a little bit later in the Masechta. But the husband is obligated to provide food for his wife. I guess it shouldn't have to be pointed. He doesn't have to prepare. He doesn't have to provide already cooked food, ready to eat food for his wife. But he's allowed to give her raw food and she can cook it. Probably money to buy the food. Okay, so Tana Rabbana, we learned in the Brisa. Tiknu mizonoseha tachas masiyadeh ukvrasa tachas ksuvasa. They decreed that the food is in place of her wages, meaning if she works, that he gets to keep the money, but he has to provide her food. Ukvrasa tachas ksuvasa, and to pay for her burial in place of her ksuva, because if she dies before he does, he doesn't have to pay her ksuva. So because he's saving money on the ksuva, he does have to pay for her burial and for the proper lamenters and wailers, whatever. We'll see what that is. No. If he would die first or divorce her, he'd have to pay her ksuva. When she dies first, he doesn't have to pay the ksuva. So instead of paying the full amount for the ksuva, he has to pay a certain amount for her to have a dignified funeral for his wife. Lefikach, therefore, says the Brisa, Baal ochal peros, therefore the husband gets to eat or gets to use the money that the fields are generating from the crops that are growing in them. So the Gemara says right away, peros mandachar shmaya. Who's talking about any fields that she brought into the marriage as a dowry? No one's talking about the generating income from her property. So what does that have to do with what the Bryce is talking about? So there must be something missing in this Brisa, and this is what it must have been, what it must have learned. Actually, let me just look something up. I'm not sure if it's a Brisa, it might be a Mishnah. No, it's just a Brisa. I'm just noticing here that ArtScroll translates Peros as produce. Now, when I said it's the money that the income that the fields are generating, it's not necessarily we're not necessarily saying different things than but it doesn't literally have to be the literal produce that the field produces. So something there was a phrase missing in the Bryce, and this is what it learned. Tiknum is an oseh tachas masiyadeh. They decreed that you have to feed her in place of her wages, uperkona tachas peiros, and freeing her if she would be held hostage in place of the fact that the husband gets to use the income generated by the fields, and she brought in ukvarasa tachas ksuvasa, and a field in place of, and he has to bury her in place of her ksuva. Lefikach, therefore, ba'alocha peiros, therefore the husband gets to eat gets to use the income from the income generated by the fields that she brought in. So my lefikach, why is it therefore? So the Gemara says, Mahu desema mechalo nechlu anuchin inainchu diimkain mimnav lo parik. I might think that he should not consume the income from the fields. If the income from the fields is in place of redeeming her, maybe any income that the fields produce should be put into a trust fund. In the case you would ever need to be redeemed for being held hostage, he would just pay out of the trust fund. Because if he wouldn't have a trust fund and he was using the money as it was coming in every year, he wouldn't have any money. He wouldn't necessarily have saved money to redeem her. Kamash Malan the Hadifa. So it teaches us that it's better for him to spend the money right away and not make a trust fund for her to redeem her, because if he would have a trust fund, Zimnin de Lomala Uparak Le Medide, because maybe it wouldn't be enough money, and then he would have to pay from his own money. So Rashi says, I guess it's a psychological insight, since he's already spent the money, he won't know how much money. So meaning, if he would have a trust fund, if he would keep a trust for her, so then if let's say he had 50,000 in this trust fund and it cost him $100,000 to ransom his wife, he'll know that he had to pay $50,000 out of his own pocket. So Rashi's saying it's better that he doesn't keep track of how much money he was earning from his wife's field, so that he wouldn't know how much money he paid. He knows that he has to pay the whole thing, but he knows that over the years he's been getting money in from the fields that she's brought into the marriage. So that is the best thing. So unfortunately, yesterday, I got involved in a discussion. We don't have a conclusion, but the question was in regard to the terrorists, Yimach Shemam. Let's say the terrorists would let a husband or a wife go free and the other one would stay. I know, that's why the discussion came up. So he was suggesting, but wanted to know if anyone had any sources that that they should both remain in captivity, because it would be a PR win for the enemy, and so it would be a Chil Hashem to have anyone be freed. That's what one person was suggesting, and he brought a case where the Chazon Ish said that if someone would put a gun to someone's head and say, "You kill Shmerel, or I'll kill a few other people," meaning no matter what the choice was, at least one person was going to die. According to the Chazon Ish, you would have to do nothing, because if you would kill someone, what?
According to anybody, you can't trust anybody.
Well, that's a different thing, right?
With a gun to your head.
Right,
okay?
right.
No, but in this situation, if clearly can save ally, not
right. So he was saying that it's better for her not to save her own life by going free because of thing. And I'm not sure about that. And part of this because our Gemara. So if the husband could secure his wife's freedom by staying, our Gemara, we learned last week and this week that the husband has an obligation to free his wife. So I think that this guy is inventing that there's a Chil Hashem if someone would go free and it would become a PR win for the enemy, which I'm not sure it is or not. But I don't see that would fall under the idea of Chil Hashem. But I would say that if one could go free to save the other, the husband should stay as the hostage and let the wife go free, because he has an obligation to redeem her. And by him staying, because in this case, I said it's not comparable to the case that he was saying. Here, you're already hostages. Here, they're both hostages.
Yeah, well,
and it's
like I was treated okay, something like that. So I don't see any
Well, this is someone who lives in Israel, and he felt that it was good propaganda for the enemy. That was arguing, but I don't necessarily know that that's Chil Hashem. There's things that are for high morale for the country, but not. But from our Gemara, I think that it's important to say that if the husband that the husband has an obligation to try to redeem his wife, even if he's a captive also. So Rashi says, so it seems from Rashi that psychologically it's better for the husband not to keep track of how much money his wife's property have generated for the marriage. So when he redeems her, he just redeems her, and he doesn't know that, oh, I have to pay this much out of my own pocket to redeem her. Seems to be a psychological insight. But Rashi explains this brisa. So now we're in the first wide line. I'm in Zayin Amud Beis. We just turned to Mem 47b3 in the art scroll. Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Tiknu. Oh, excuse me, I skipped 2 words. The Epach Ana. Why do we flip it? Why do we say that her wages are in place of food, and the property she brought in, the income generating property, is in case of redeeming the field? Maybe the income generating property is in place of feeding her, and her wages are in place of redeeming her in case she would held captive. So Rabbi says, Tiknu matzu lamatzu, shena matzu l'shena matzu. They were misaking, they instituted a common case for a common case and an uncommon case for an uncommon case. So for that a wife would have a job is common, and for the wife to be fed is common. For the wife to be taken hostage is not so common, and for the wife to bring income generating property into the marriage is uncommon. So we match the uncommon thing with the uncommon thing and the common thing with the common thing. Amar Rabba.
You skipped 47b3?
No, we just read the whole 47b2. That's where we started, from the very beginning of 47b2. And then we read the whole 47.
46. Okay.
We did 46 last week.
Okay.
Okay, so Amar Rava. Rava says, Hi Tana Savar Mazonos Midi Raisa. This Tana of this Brisa holds that a husband providing food for his wife is a biblical obligation. Now, it's a little bit questionable, because what's the first word of the Brisa? The Brisa was tiknu. They instituted. Makes it sound like the institution of feeding her is in place of the halacha that she gets the wages. But Rav is saying, no, it's midi raisa. So then what's the tiknu? So I guess you'd have to say that the tiknu is on the other cases of the brisa. Did we have a pasuk that redeeming is midi raisa? Yeah, I don't think we had a gzera that it's Yiraisa. So it must be that the Mizonos part, then, according to Rava, is not the part that it says Tiknu, they instituted, is not for the food part, but it's for the other things mentioned in the Brisa. The burial and possibly the redeeming her if she was held hostage. So we're going to say a few things. So let me just read some psukim before we start. So there's a pasuk by Amma Ivria, that the Amma Ivria was, again, the young Jewish girl who was sold by her father as a slave, as a servant, and the master has the right, instead of her going free, to marry her. And so the Torah says that if she gets married, she's a full wife. So the pasuk in Mishpatim says, Imacher sikachlo, if he will marry another woman besides this Amma Ivriya, she'era ksusa va'ona solo yigra. Her she'er, her clothing, and her ona cannot be reduced or minimized. So we're going to be talking about what exactly she'er means and what ona means, and so this is one pasuk that we're going to be dealing with. So Rava says that this Tana holds that feeding her is midi raisa. The Tana, because we learned in the Brisa, she'era. So when the pasuk says she'er, what does that mean? Elo mizonos. That means her food. V'cheinu omer v'asher ichlu she'er ami, and that they consume the food of my nation. So she'er can refer to food provisions. Susak mashmo, clothing is literally clothing. Onasa, what does ona mean? Zu ona hamura b'Torah. This is the time that a husband has to have relations with his wife every so often. V'cheinu omer, and similarly it says when Yaakov and Lavan were when Yaakov had left, and then Lavan caught up with him, and they made the monument at Yagar Sadusa, which Yaakov called Galed. So Lavan made Yaakov take a shvua im ta'anes benosai. If you will afflict my daughters, and in this case it means you cannot reduce the marital relations with Rachel and Leah. So she'er ksus va'ona refers to food, clothing, and the marital relation. Rabbi Lazar Omer she'era zu'ona. Rabbi Lazar says that the word she'er doesn't refer to food, but that means marital relations. The V'cheinu Omer, as it says, ishi shall call she'er b'sor lo sikvu legalas erva, because the pasuk of arayos of incest in the Torah is introduced. Every man to she'er b'saro. You cannot come close to reveal their nakedness. So she'er b'saro is talking about a sexual relationship. So she'era means a marital relationship. Ksusa k'mashmao, clothing is literally clothing. Onasa elam ezonos. Ona means food. V'cheinu omer vaya'ancha vayarivecha. As the pasuk, I think this is in Devarim. I think it's at the beginning of Akev. That Hashem afflicted us in the midbar and we were hungry, but then He gave us man. So the word vayancha had to do with being hungry from not having food. So the only machlokus between Rava and Rabbi Lazar here, they all agree that you have to give her food, clothing, and marital relations. Is just which word from she'er and ona. It's a machlokus if she'er means clothes and ona means marital relations, or she'er means marital relations and ona means food. And they have psukim to show that the same word is used in other cases. And just the question is which usage of this word is meant in this pasuk. And I'll just point out parenthetically, because last week's parsha was Parshas Noach. So Tzohar Tasel Ateva. So one opinion was Tzohar was a window. Rashi brings down. And another opinion that Rashi brings down was Tzohar was some type of jewel that produced light. And I think Rashi quoted a pasuk in Eov or something where the word Tzohar has to do with like light from a star or something. So the word so the reason that he explains that it's some type of light emitting something that glows is because there's a pasuk in Tanakh somewhere else that this word, the same root Tzohar, has to do with like a star that's emitting light. Now there's the Chizkuni brings down, and I think it's also in Rabbi Yehuda Chassid's parish, or Rabbi Yehuda Levi's parish, I mean, that the word Tzohar means oil. He told Noach to bring a lot of oil to have a lamp. And how do we get that from the word? Because in Parshas Re'eh, I think it is, when we talk about Truma, or in Korach, or wherever in Sefer Bamidbar it talks about Truma, we talked about Truma from Dagon v'Yitzar, or not Goren v'Yitzar. Goren is the wine press, and Yitzar is the olive press. So the word Yitzar, Yud Sadi Hey Reish, is oil, and the word Tzohar by the Teva, the Chizkuni and Rabbi Yehuda Alevi say, is from that word Yitzar. So it means you bring a big lamp, so you need oil to make the lamp it's fuel for the lamp. So this is something commonly we see, that when we have an unusual word, there are times in Tanakh that there's the same root or a similar word that it means different things at different times. And so sometimes the machlokus is, do we compare this word to this pasuk or to that pasuk? And that's really what this machlokus between Rava and the Rebbe Lazar is over here. But it's an important way of understanding why does someone say a certain pshat in a pasuk, and the reason is they think that the pshat of this word means this. Okay, now we're on Mem Chesem at Aleph. Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov Omer, a third opinion, She'era ksusa lefum she'era tin ksusa. That she'era and ksusa are like a phrase that go together. According to her she'er, you have to give her proper clothes. Shalo yitin la lo shal yalda lezkenav lo shal zkena yalda. You can't give a young woman's clothes to an old woman, and not an old woman's clothes to a young woman. So Rashi says that basically, when a woman is older, she wants to have clothes that aren't so heavy. But the younger ones want to wear clothes that are wider and bigger because they make them fancy or whatever, or add. Rashi doesn't say pins or scarves or whatever, but it ends up that a young woman's clothes are much heavier than an old woman's clothes, so it's not appropriate to have an old woman wear these heavier clothes, and a young woman who would want to wear those style of clothes that are bigger and she could add more or whatever pins on them. It's not appropriate to give her clothes that don't give her that opportunity. Ksus va'ona. So the word she'er ksus va'ona. So the ksus is a sandwich between the word she'er and the word ona. So hold on a second. Hello. Oh. Okay, where's Chemda? Did you pick her up? Okay, so you'll go there and I'll go there in like a few minutes. I'm sorry, to the condo. Oh no, I'll go there in a few minutes. I'll go there in a few minutes. I forgot about that. I didn't remember the time that we said. Okay, bye. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go in a few minutes. So the word ksus is modified by the word she'er and also by the word ona. So she'er, the younger clothes style versus the older, and also ona. So ona also means time. So meaning the previous say we said that the husband has to have marital relations with wife at a certain time. It's literally it's a time, but it means the marital relation at certain times. But ona does mean a time. Lefum onasa tenksus, according to the season, give her clothes. You shouldn't give her new clothes in the summertime and not worn out clothes in the wintertime. So it seems that from the economy and things that way things work then is that when you had new clothes, they were thicker and warmer, so you'd start those in the wintertime. And then after you wore through the winter, through the washing and this and that, they got thinner and not as warm. So it was more appropriate for the summertime because they're not as warm by that time. But you can't give them the clothes that are thinner in the summertime. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says that She'er Ksus Va'ona is talking about only halachas about clothes for the wife. Okay, 2 dots. Tani Rabbi Yosef, She'era zu kiruv basar, sh'loyanik ba'mida parsiim, shemeshashmi tosem b'vusheim. Rabbi Yosef says She'era means that you have to have kiruv basar, which basically means skin-to-skin contact. You can't act like the Persians that they have relations with their wife while they're dressed. Misayele Rav Huna. This supports the teaching of Rav Huna, the Amar Rav Huna, HaOmer EFshi ani ella ani bevigdi v'vigda yotzu nosing suva. If a man says that he's not able to have relations with her without his clothes on, and he says, I need to have my clothes on and she needs to have her clothes on, so he should divorce her and give her ksuva, because there's nothing wrong with what she wants, but it's something unreasonable from his perspective. Rabbi Yehuda Merafilu Ani should be Strauss. Rabbi Yehuda says even a poor person can't have less than 2 wailers and 1 at the funeral, 2 flutes and 1 lamenter or wailing person. So Mechlal the Tanakama Savar Hani Lo. So the fact that Rabbi Yehuda says this is what you have to provide at your wife's funeral implies that for the Tanakama holds you don't even have to provide this much. So Hechidami, what's the case? Ida Orcha my time Tanakama. If the normal way is to have 2 flutes and a wailer, why does the Tanakama hold you don't need that much? The Amar Lo. The Idalav Orche my time Rabbi Yehuda Delo Trichi. And if it's unusual, my time Rabbi Yehuda, and if this is an unusual thing to have 2 flutes, which Rashi says are inducing crying, and the wailer, my time Rabbi Yehuda, why does Rabbi Yehuda require this particular expenses for the funeral. So the Gemara says, "Lo tzricha could go into orche didei, v'lav orcha dida." So it's a case where they come from different types of families. His family was to provide this, but her family's practice was not to provide this. Tanakama savar ki amrinon ola imo ve'ino yuredes imo hani milu mechayim. The Tanakama holds, the first Tana of the Brisa, who doesn't say you have to do it, when we says that a wife gets elevated to her husband's status and doesn't go down to his status, that's only while she's alive. So if she's alive, anything that the women in his family would get, she would get too. But after she dies, she doesn't get extra stuff that she wouldn't have gotten from her family. Rabbi Huda said, Rabbi Huda holds even after death, she will get the elevated stuff from his family. Amr Rav Chisda, Amr Mar Ukva, halachik Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Chisda said the name of Mar Ukva, the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that you have to provide these the money for these flutes and lamenters at her funeral. The Amr Rav Chisda, Amr Ukva, Rav Chisda also said the name of Ukva Misha Nishtata, based in Yarden Luchasav, Zanu Farnazim Ashlishta Banu Vnosa. Someone who lost their sanity and they're not able to make decisions anymore. Based in can spend his money, go into his assets and give food and parnasa for his wife and his daughters and his sons, v'davracher, and something else. So Amarli Ravina Ravashi, Ravina said to Ravashi, Ma'ishna me haidetanya. Why is this different from the following brisa? If a person went overseas on a business trip, so he's going to be gone for many years usually, and his wife is saying, he didn't leave me money for food. Based in Yordan Chazav, Mafarnasin es Ishto. Based in will go into his assets and support his wife of a lobanav lobnosav, but not his sons and his wife, nor davar acher. So how come if he became mentally unfit, based in will support his children also, but if he went on a business trip, the based in will go into his assets to support his wife, but not his kids? Why is it different? So Amarle, Ravashi said, you don't see the difference between someone who goes with intent to someone who goes without intent. If the husband was he made a decision to make a business trip, so he should have arranged everything before he left. From the fact that he didn't make plans that his kids would be getting a disbursement from his estate, he's alive, from his assets to feed them, he would have arranged it. So it's clearly that he doesn't want that to happen. But when a person lost his seichel and now can't make any decisions, he couldn't plan for that. So we won't say that he didn't want to support them. So my davar acher, when we say that he also has to provide for something else, what's the something else? Rav Chisda Amar zeh tachshit. This is tachshit. So tachshit means some type of adornment. Sometimes it means jewelry. Rashi says it means perfume. Rav Yosef Amar tzedakah. Rav Yosef says it's also for tzedakah to be given from his in his name. Man Amar tachshit, the one who says that it's perfume, kol shekain tzedakah. You certainly would also give tzedakah. Excuse me. Since you're not paying for perfume, you're not going to pay for tzedakah either. Man Amar tzedakah, but the one who says that you don't pay, the Beis Din doesn't take tzedakah, aval tachi yavinala. But they would say that perfume based in wood, he doesn't want his wife to be considered, not put together. So when they say if davar acher means tzedakah, they won't pay tzedakah out of his thing because he never made plans for that. But they would provide. So it's machlokas. If when providing for his wife, they would also provide perfume for her or not. I'm sorry, I have to leave early. My wife made a